You're on.
Holy Spirit. This is so great, so magnificent. And uh, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give some expansion and synchronize everything that Eitai said. This is so profound when we get to the point. At this point, we are talking about 250 love. We are just talking about it.
Yes,
We have
yes.
not reached those points yet. Let's be real with ourselves. We're talking about, and that's a beginning,
Right,
you know. And we got to have a beginning in our fall if we're going to start back to eternity. We
right.
got to have a beginning, okay? But when we get to eternity and understand eternity, there is no beginning and there is no end.
That's correct.
Now this is very close because everything everybody said, you already know these things, but
Yes,
because you've been what? Given this what? This language of dualism, and it continues to confuse you and everybody that listen to you. Now, listen to this. Now, I'm going to start with a double mind. Now, okay, and we're going to walk right back into what each I just got to explain to you. See, a double-minded person is unstable in how many of his ways?
all.
Well, now let's think about that. Well, which one is right? If all of them is unstable, and if we look at the word unstable, how can you use either one of them? But why do we keep doing that? Because we don't understand what done happened in terms of our emanation into here. It brought us out of wholeness into division. And
Absolutely.
once you understand that, and you know that is not your purpose, and intent to get back to remain in dualities, but to get back to wholeness. So now let's look at this here. Double-minded man and unstable and all this. Now I want us to go to the book of James because I need me rushing. I want to take this is profound and it's going to take us some time, but we got to get this because I hear and I'm glad to hear the sisters beginning to talk now
Yes.
because something is happening to them without them even knowing what's happening. You know, something is awakening within you because you wasn't saying nothing. Now, what doesn't happen all of a sudden? Now we didn't start to talk. Let's start with the second verse through the eighth verse, Eitai.
James
James,
1.
first chapter, verses 2 through 8.
All right. I'll highlight them here so that we can see them. Those that are reading from James, the first chapter, verses 3
Now,
2.
first, I want us to listen, not with your cerebral, you understand, cortex being involved. Now, I know that ain't something that you can actually do like that, but I got to say it. I want you
Right.
to hear that we get to go forward. Let's listen with the heart so that we can what? With the ear and the heart so that we can hear and feel what's being said here.
That
Okay? Read, Bakasha.
James 1 2 through 8. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations.
Now hold right there. Now, how many people count their joy? Absolutely nobody when you fall into temptation. That's what everybody's talking about now. Ain't
Right.
no joy. It's pain. It's pain. Ain't no joy into diverse temptations. But as long as you remain dual or double-minded, dualistic, I guarantee you're going to stay in what? Diverse temptation.
Right.
You will always be tempted to what? Get back at somebody get back at you, and it just goes on and on and on and on. Listen carefully and closely to what's being said here. Read.
Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience.
So now here's something called faith. Now it's being tested. What do you believe you divinity? Or do you believe you just human flesh?
That's right, Nasik.
That's what you got to ask you. Do you believe you God, or do you believe there's a God outside of you? And we already know the question. No, we don't believe it. We know the answer. We don't believe that. We are trying to believe it. We
Right,
trying to have confidence in it. But
right,
at this point, there's absolutely no confidence that you anything, because what? You ain't been able to accomplish nothing you want to accomplish.
right.
Follow us now. Continue, time.
But let patience have her perfect work.
Now, hold. Say, but that patience, but what patience? Now, when you think of patience, we say, oh, that's Sabla new. So, what does that mean? In the Hebraic sense or in the religious sense, you just what? Wait till something happen, and then, well, if it don't happen, you just keep waiting. That ain't what we're talking about, no patience.
Right.
Okay? We
Does
got
that
to
mean
understand. We got to understand what's being said. Patience is perfection. Eitai just told us, said that love is in everything and love is everything. Well, how could love not be impatient? How could patience not be love?
Absolutely.
You got to hear what we're saying now, because it's hopefully today is going to have a major breakthrough, and we're going to really understand what we've been talking about a double mind and dualism and the danger that it provides for us and humanity. Continue, Eitai.
Verse 4, but let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting.
That you may be what? Not dualistic, but that you may be whole entirely. Now, how many of us on this line now? You done read this 100 times, but what the context that is being put in
Yes,
helps you to understand it. This is why repetition, you're saying, of things that you what come to understand as a unity is started to add clarity. Not just repetition over and hearing the same thing over and over, but when it becomes unity and oneness and wholeness, and you repetitiously say it, then it begins to what? Resonate differently within the organs. All
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Come on. Come on.
Verse 5, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth
Now,
to all man liberally.
okay, now say Eitai just gave us a term about love and wisdom and what? How all is tied to the heart.
Right.
So where you asking for, if you asking outside of yourself and not you understand within yourself, you ain't gonna never understand.
That's right.
Continue on.
That giveth to all man liberally and
Wouldn't you
upbraideth.
give to yourself liberally if you understood what self-love was?
That's
Would
right.
not you always give liberally, freely,
Right.
willingly, unconditionally? You would do that. Continue.
And it shall be given him.
Now, would not it be given back to you? Because you are given to yourself.
Why would you not give liberally to yourself?
That's what I'm talking about. Come on now.
But let him ask in faith.
But let him ask. Now, here we go again. But what? He said, patience test your faith, and faith test your patience. But
Right.
it's all tied to what? Love. What is your faith? What is your concept of love? And this is what is being tested.
Right.
Do you really love yourself?
Right.
Do you really love doing for yourself? All this is being tested now. Continue.
That's primary. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering.
Don't waver. You got to what? You got to stick to it. Now, what happens when you got a double mind? You waver, don't you?
Jump from one side to the next.
There we go. Right and left, up and down. You wavering all the time in duality. Come on now.
For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double
Now,
mind. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, who is the Lord? You don't receive from anything outside of yourself. If you don't give to yourself, you can't receive from yourself. Listen, we're going to have to understand how we emanated in there and the significance of the term that we keep using, consciousness. We're going to expand that to a little bit more so you'll understand, because most of us are not comfortable with consciousness. We are more conscious, more comfortable with the word spirit. And I'm going to show you something about the word spirit, ruach. Okay, continue, Eitai.
For let not that man think that he will receive anything of the Lord. A double
Uh-huh.
minded man is unstable in all his ways.
So now here we go, this double mind, duality, dualism. All these are terms talking about two. All right. Now, it says that a double-minded person is unstable in all his ways. Now, what the Greek term here for double-minded is 1374, and I think you pronounce it depsukaz. Depsukaz. It's DEP dash SOO then dash KHOS, and it says two spirited. Then it says, i.e., vacillating in opinions or purpose. Now, you're not vacillating, based upon the truth. If these opinions now, not based upon truth. This is your opinion about things. It's not based upon actuality. It's not based
Right.
upon wholeness. It's based upon the perception that you have and the opinion you have about things, because you don't know the truth. Because the truth now we see gonna take us back to, the word, heart, hearing, all this gonna have to link back up. And without that, we're not going to be able to grasp what is actually being said here about opinions. So then he go on and he said that man is unstable in all of his ways. Now, this word unstable, you know. So an unstable person, that means that individual is not, centered. You know, he's not, based upon one holistic purpose. He here and there and everywhere. Now, in that, he moves away from the word heart. And let me show you why. Now, they tell you that the heart is the center, okay, and the seat of the soul. The way these are terms. So let's look at the word center.
Uh-huh.
Center, center. But then we get the word from center, we get the word central. You see how these words are? So now what becomes the center and the central element, you understand, other than love being the center, being in everything? Love is the center. Love is central. It is all in everything. It is everything. And now, so I wrote down this. Love is in everything. It is one thing. And if it's one thing, then that love is central. And it is the heart. It is in everything and in everything. And it is all things. So now, if love is all of this, what do the commandments say? Love Yah with all the heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself, right?
Right.
So love becomes the center of everything, and it must be in everything, and it is in everything. I
That's
don't know anything that's living that don't have a heart.
Right. Come on, Nasik.
I don't know anything that's living as we know it in the physical that don't have an ear or
Right.
ear.
Mm-hmm.
So now when we start to understand these things, then we move to this particular point. Now, we're going to go to the book of Philippians, Eitai. Philippians, the second chapter. Okay, the book of Philippians, second chapter. Second chapter.
Uh-huh.
We're going to start with verse 5, verse 6, and um, verse 7. 5, 6, and 7.
Reading.
Now let's go 5 through 8, Eitai. 5 through 8.
No problem. Philippians
Babasha.
2, 5 through 8. Let this mind be in you, which was also
Now,
in Christ.
okay, we already know about your mind now.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Keep that in mind. I want us to hear these things. Listen with the ear because it must go to the heart. Okay? Come on, Eitai.
Who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Wow.
Mm.
But made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in the fashion as a man, he humbled himself, and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross.
Now, let's go back, Eitai. I want you to put on the board the word 24/7 in the New Testament, equal.
All right.
They thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Let's see what's being said here in terms of being equal. They thought it not robbery, but now we have been taught that can a man rob God, right? He robbed him in tithes, right?
Right.
It
Right.
ain't, he said, I didn't think it was robbery to be equal with God. Well, why am I tithing to God?
I got it up, Nasik.
Go ahead. What do it say?
I'll play it.
Strong's G 2470. Isas. Isas.
Isas.
Uh-huh. What does it mean?
It says that it's translated equal, agree together,
Uh-huh.
as much, and like.
To agree together as much as like. What did that sound? That sounds like oneness and wholeness to me.
That's it.
Absolutely.
That's what
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like to me.
Mm-hmm.
So he said he thought it not robbery to be equal with God. But he made himself of no reputation. Da, 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 da. And he humbled himself to be a servant. So forth and so on. So now let's consider this here. We're going to consider this within the context of consciousness. Because when you serve, you're expecting in the physical realm, your servitude is supposed to produce, you understand, the things that you serve for, you're supposed to get paid for it, right?
Supposed to be rewarded, Nasik. You
Be
expect
Mm-hmm.
rewarded.
you
He
expect
said, but
something
he
in
took
return.
upon himself the form of a servant, but he thought he didn't make no reputation. So let's go to the chapter 24 in power verses 4. And then after that, Eitai, we're going to go to chapter 21.
Okay,
Uh,
I'm going to put it on pause, Nasik, so we can sync it up with
okay,
different versions. I'll put it
go
on.
ahead.
Are we
Okay,
recording?
found it. Power versus force.
Are we recording, Eitai?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Okay, go ahead.
Power versus force, 24th chapter, titled Resolution. A thorough absorption of the material presented herein has been shown to be able to raise one's level of consciousness by an average of 35 points.
An average of 35 points. Now, family, we just read early on that humanity, 85% of humanity is operating on below 200. Now, and he goes on to say, most people go a whole lifetime and never raise their consciousness beyond 5%.
Right.
So now you're talking about 35% here. Now let me explain how this is going to happen. The information that he's laying out here, when you understand it as consciousness and wholeness and oneness, and now you can raise it to whatever you want to.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
don't understand this, you're not going to raise your kind. You're just going to be
Yes.
talking about.
Yes.
All right, continue, Eitai.
Inasmuch as the progression of consciousness during the average of human lifetimes lived on this globe has been only 5 points, such an increase in individual awareness is an enormous benefit in itself. And as advanced theoretical physics and nonlinear dynamics have shown, any individual increase also raises to some degree the consciousness of everyone on the planet.
Now
Everything,
you see what we're doing here?
right?
Now,
Absolutely.
this is so
Absolutely, Nasik.
critical for what we're doing.
Yes.
I don't want us to take this lightly. And like
Yes.
when I called Eitai today and what happened with the phone, I mean, I was upset myself because, man, you mean we're not going to be able to get together today? Because he always called me and he didn't call today. And I said, wait a minute. Let me go and see, is the other line okay? So this is how vital it means to some of
Yes.
us, and hopefully
Yes.
all of us.
Yes.
Okay? Continue.
To become more conscious is the greatest gift anyone can give to the world. Moreover, in a ripple effect, the gift comes back to its source. This is critical.
I said,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
who is the source now?
Mhm.
You got to
Mhm.
go back to
Mhm.
each and every one of us on this line, family, has a responsibility to ourselves.
Right.
Absolutely, Nasik.
Responsibilities to yourself.
Yes.
You
Now,
got
see,
to,
that's love. That's
that's
love.
love.
Yes.
So don't tell me about some love, something about something else.
Right.
You love something else more than you. But it says, love the Lord, thou God. Who is the Lord?
Mhm.
All the soul and love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, who is thy neighbor?
Right.
You
I
know,
think that's without condition.
see, when you become dualistic, your neighbor is what? The division that you have what? Created within yourself.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yes.
So this is key information here. Now, the next point we want to go to the chapter 21, the study of pure consciousness.
Okay,
Now, what I
I'll
want
put
us
it
to
on
do
hold
here,
again. I'll put it on hold again and then I'll find it. All right.
okay.
All right. Again, reading from the book Power versus Force, chapter 21, the study of pure consciousness. Various aspects of consciousness have been the subject of traditional philosophy, and the expressions of consciousness as mind or emotion have been the subjects of clinical sciences. But the nature of consciousness itself has never been clinically studied in any
Now,
comprehensive
nature
sense.
of consciousness. This is what we're talking about. The nature of consciousness has
Mhm.
never been comprehended or studied. Now, okay, drop down to the last paragraph, okay?
The one
I mean,
recurrent focus
right.
of interest in the subject has been speculation regarding what happens to man's consciousness at death. Does the power of life and awareness arise from a physical basis?
Hear that now. Listen carefully.
Does the body sustain conscious life, or is it the other way around?
Mm-hmm.
Power of life sustains the body. We all should be able to answer this with flying colors.
You know it does. Consciousness sustains everything that we are.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Because the way the question is asked will be divided.
Here we go. Now hold right there, Eitai. I want to go back to Sharon. I just want to, and Sharon, we're just calling your name because the question that you asked and the questions, and I answered it by saying, you know, if you coming from a dualistic point of view, the question is going to be answered from a dualistic point of view.
Yes.
And when that happens, it's going to always have to agree with what you said, or it's going to have to agree with the one that stated it. And now you got what? A double mind. You back and forth trying to what? Figure it out, and you become more and more confused. That's why we got to understand the power of dualism, the power of duality, how it affects us. It don't bring no answers. It don't give you no answers, just keep you more confused. But under the illusion, once somebody give you an answer to something that you say resonate with you or you feel it, you think that is what? Correct. You know, but remember now, you've been affected. The organ's been affected by, quote unquote, the mind.
Yes.
The mind that affected the organ. They're not resonating according to holism. They're resonating dualism. Okay? Continue, go back to that point.
Because the way the question is asked will be defined, listen, by the questioner's preconception of causality.
Preconception of causality. Come on now.
I got to repeat this. Because the way the question is asked will be defined by the questioner's preconception of causality. The level of the questioner will predetermine the nature of the answer.
All right. Continue.
Each questioner will derive an answer representative of his level of consciousness.
All right, now we're going to hold right there. I want us to marinate this thing. Take your time and think about this. Everybody got to go back and get the book, and they got to read this until you understand this. Because if you don't, every day we come on this line, based upon your level of consciousness will determine your questions, and then if the answer is relative to, quote unquote, what it says, perceptions of causality. Now we know there is no causes in the literal or physical world.
That's
These
correct.
are just the causes in the realm of consciousness,
Yes.
which is what? Non-material. So I want us to seriously think about this. And as we close on the point of a double-minded person is unstable in all his ways, we better understand now what's actually being said in terms of that individual not getting no answers. Because what? We see that he's asking questions based on a low level of consciousness, and that low level of consciousness, you understand, going to always bring what? A low level of answers back to the questioner. So now, let's take it a little further. So, family, what we're going to do, we had introduced yesterday in the closeout the first 7 verses of the book of Genesis as we closed out yesterday. But again, based upon Eitai's perfect lead-in today and the things that I shared to help anchor, ground, you know, what he has stated from another perspective. Nothing in opposition, nothing in controversy, but just to help us centralize as we organize, you know, saying our method, you know, of moving from, you know, this lower realm of consciousness back to our divinity. We've been really, really pushing this thing about the mind, trying to get us to really understand it. So throughout, the lesson, as we continue, you might hear a lot of redundancy, but it's only redundant in the sense of making sure that it is heard within a context and resonation that each and every individual, as where they are within their consciousness, will be able to hear it.
Right.
That's the purpose of the redundancy, okay?
Right.
And so I know you keep talking about this mind, but it's a purpose behind it, and it's an intent, okay? So I just want to state that, because the lead in to these verses started with the mind, and I'm going to pick back up here, and then we'll look at the verses, and then we will continue on. The word mind, we went from matrix, womb, and mind, and we showed the correlation. But it was one key point in the definition of mind, which was established in the 12th century. And it says recollection, memory. 2, the element or complex of elements in an individual that feels, perceives, thinks, will, and expresses the reason. And we mentioned yesterday, Eitai was going to get into this concept of reason. But now let's go back to the elements. What are the elements in each individual that feel, perceive, thinks, will, and particularly, especially reason? We're talking about some elements now. Okay. Now, I think it was Sharona yesterday, and Eitai mentioned to her that at least we identified the elements in the first chapter of Genesis, the 2nd verse. Those elements was key to understanding what it is that we're talking about in terms of they have to already be in you in order for them to feel, perceive. All this is all one now.
That's
Remember that.
Mm-hmm.
This is very key. You can't think in terms of anything being separate. Continuing on, it said, the conscious mental events, now conscious mental events. Okay, now an event is something that takes place at a particular time. It said the conscious mental events and capabilities in an organism. So where the whole total body is an organism, the external organ, the flesh, and the internal organ, etc. We're talking about the whole of everything, right?
Right.
Now, you said we have to understand the purpose, intention of the physical matter, womb, which we presently reside within. This matrix / mind or womb have served its purpose in maintaining and preventing consciousness from being its own observer of itself in motion. Now, follow us now, because you got to see now, consciousness, is the source by which everything emanates from. Consciousness at rest. So if we go to the verses, we don't have to read them because each I can put them on the board if you want them, but it's 1 through 7 of Genesis.
Got it.
And then we're going to give you some insight about this. Okay, and I want us to listen very intently because it's real important here. Okay. First 7 verses of Genesis 1. I said, as we focus on verse 2 of the narrative, we are given a profound revelation and conception of the creative process. That's what we got to understand. This 2nd verse gives us a profound insight and conceptualization of the creative process, okay? As it is revealed within, quote, the phrase, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved up on the waters. Now, in that phrase. The inner divinity of consciousness at rest, moved or animated from inner desire to observe itself within itself through sound to light, then waves, and thus particles, as an inner desire to observe itself as a reflection of itself. Everything is self, everything is one, okay? Thus, the creation of the physical universe are simulated false mind matrix of reality. This gave us the ability to recognize and to observe and evaluate, once we activate this consciousness, the false universe simulated mind in respect to and in harmony with, not in harmony, in respect to the what? The organic creative process of universe, okay? Where everything is connected. It gave us this capability, okay? That the dark energy of neuromelanin within consciousness at rest move through sound to light, to waves, and then to particles, into geometrical symbols, and then to human flesh. Thus, this has to become the process by which we understand the creative process of the devolution into the physical plane occurred. Okay? So we see here as to how all of this took place, taking us from divinity into this physical plane, how this occurred. We gave step by step. Now, as we continue, whenever we hear scientists and physicists speak of the black hole, dark energy, dark matter, they are referring to neuromelanin within consciousness that causes the brain to be animated. These impulses are caused by the motion or movement of neuromelanin within consciousness as it moves from a state of rest, animates the brain, that scientists and physicists have defined the brain's motion or brain in action to be the mind. So now, if there's no motion animated by consciousness of the physical body, where's the mind at?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have one, family. This is how the ancestors used this language, you know, through the custodians that had access to it or overseers of it, while we in our devolution state of the, you know, fall. And so on our way back, we are trying to interpret the things that they have given us, the methods and ways that they have what programmed us to look at things. And that's why we continue to misunderstand one another and end up fighting one another, disagreeing with one another, losing friendship with one another, all because of such. Continuing on now to magnify what we just said. Subjected, this is a quote from Joe Dispenza, and this is from Spontaneous Evolution by Joe Dispenza, Spontaneous Evolution, page 69. Okay, and this is what he said. Subjective consciousness can exist both in the body and independent of the body. When people have an out-of-body experience during which they are completely aware, you can see the body lying in the bed. It is subjective consciousness that is aware in the experience. Okay, now Just think back to what I just said. Observing itself,
Right.
understand from
Mhm.
within itself.
Right.
Yes.
They just explain it, so another way. Follow us now. It says, it is subjective consciousness that is aware in the experience, independent of the body. Let me go back and read this again. Matter of fact, I want to go back and pick this whole 2 paragraphs up because I want us to really hear this. Whenever we hear a scientist and physicist speak of the black hole, dark energy, and dark matter, they are referring to neuromelanin within consciousness that causes the brain to be animated. These impulses are caused by the motion or movement of neuromelanin within consciousness. As it moved from a state of rest that animates the brain, that scientists and physicists have defined the brain's motion or brain in action to be the mind. So as I state, no animation of the brain via consciousness, and there is no mind.
Right.
So then there is no mind. What is the mind doing in terms of producing anything? Okay? So we're saying that the mind now is a program that everybody is working from, and it is a what? Prevent your consciousness from being what? Utilized and brought into action. They give you a abstract concept, and they want you to take that abstract concept of mind and then try to what? Call that abstract concept to animate the internal and external organs, your body, and it's not going to do it. It can't do it, family.
Nasik.
Yes, sir. Talk to me.
So can we call the mind artificial intelligence?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
We think
I
too
was
much.
getting that the other day. That's exactly what I was getting at. Remember I brought that up, AI?
Yeah. Right. I like
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We think too much, Nasik.
that.
That was Lipton's what chapter?
So what we're saying, we have been preferring, what we call artificial intelligence opposed organic intelligence, huh?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
But we would have to do that in this what? Artificial state that we exist in.
Yes,
Reality.
yes.
So we quote now, subjective consciousness can exist both in the body and independent of the body. When people, now it didn't say mind now, it said consciousness. Keep this in mind now. When people have an out-of-body experience during which they are completely aware, yet can see the body lying in the bed, it is subjective consciousness that is aware in the experience, independent of the body. That ain't no mind, that's consciousness, family. Therefore, subjective consciousness is not the body, but it uses the body. It is our self-consciousness identity. For the most part, it is localized within the physical body. We're getting some feedback, Eitai.
Yeah, I'm trying to see where it's coming from, Nasik.
Okay.
I ask everyone to mute their phones or their microphones. until it is, you want to speak. Okay.
Family, are we good here now? Is there any questions or comments? Everybody clear where we're going?
I said, can you read that last
Can.
sentence?
Says subjective consciousness can exist both in the body and independent of the body. When people have an out-of-body experience during which they are completely aware, yet can see the body lying in the bed, it is subjective consciousness that is aware in the experience, independent of the body. Now, that has to mean what? That consciousness is omnipresent.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Therefore, subjective consciousness is not the body, but it uses the body. So let's erase this thing called a mind using the body, okay? It is our self-consciousness identity, okay? For the most part, it is localized within the physical body, okay? Continue on. Quote, as human beings, we possesses both elements of consciousness. Now, let's go back to what we stated earlier there about these elements of consciousness. Now, here they're being brought out. He called them subconscious, subjective and objective consciousness. This is what he's defining. He said, now, as human beings, we possess both elements of consciousness. We are consciously aware as a subjective consciousness, and we exist because we are connected to the force or power of life that is an objective consciousness. Consciousness at rest, family.
Yes.
Quote, the brain without consciousness is inert and lifeless. Consciousness is facilitated through the brain, through the human brain.
Yes.
The end result is called mind. Now read it again. When consciousness is facilitated through the human brain, the end result is called mind. Mind is a working brain, a brain in action. Mind comes into being when an operating brain is animated with life. Remember now, consciousness at rest. There is no mind without the physical expression of life through a functioning brain. I'll read again. There's no mind without the physical expression of life through a functioning brain. Mind, then, is the product of consciousness, manipulating the subtle and diverse neural tissues of the brain. Key point.
Yes.
Go back now, listen to me. Mind, then, is the product of consciousness, manipulating the subtle and diverse neural tissues of the brain. Now, what does the mind? Mind is dualism. Okay? This is the programming that it manipulates the brain.
Nasik,
Yes, sir.
artificial intelligence does that too.
That's what we're talking about.
Exactly, because
This is the manipulation process.
yes, these cell phones, all this is manipulating the tissues in our bodies.
That's what's happening.
Nasik,
Yes, sir.
this goes back to the point, and I'll make it again. How this truth, how this sound, the sound of truth, bypasses the brain through the ear.
Yes, it does.
and goes directly to the heart. So if you bypass the brain, the other
Mm.
four senses go directly, they're experienced in the brain. This is what Nasik is showing us. But the ear and sound bypasses the brain and goes directly to the heart. This takes us back to where we started, family. Go ahead, Nasik. This is excellent.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Just a quick
Can
question.
Go ahead,
Can I
baby.
ask a question?
Go ahead.
Can you say it would be lower and higher frequencies that may be manipulating the tissues and the neural networks of the brain? But as you get up to the higher frequencies, when you can connect with those, then they go to the heart. I'm just asking. That's what I'm thinking.
No. I agree with you, Sharon. See, again, let's go back to the idea of duality versus wholeness. Wholeness, then you are in control. But in duality, you're not in control. You follow what I'm saying? And so,
Yeah.
higher your consciousness, you determine, you understand, everything. But now in a lower realm of conscious frequency, you are what?
Right.
Under the dominion and, you know, if you want to call it mercy or objective of those frequencies, you understand, in the lower realm of consciousness. You are what? Being governed and dictated to by, and you follow and do whatever you told to do.
Right.
You know? So I agree with you.
I
No question.
want to say one thing too, but everything that goes to through the ear. This is why we have to be careful how we hear. You remember the scripture said that because low frequency, now see, low frequencies can enter into the heart as well.
Absolutely. That's right.
I just want to make sure that we understand this.
Oh, that's correct.
Low vibrational frequencies can, because that was dealt with in the New Testament allegory. It says, someone's got their mic open and we got background noise. Is when the question is asked, where does bitterness come from? Cursing, all that kind of stuff. Does it not come from the heart?
No, you're 100% right. Now listen to this.
Right.
This takes us back to Ecclesiastes 8, 5, and 6.
There you go.
Just right back there. You know, then what it says that, again, let me just read it. Whosoever keeps the commandment shall feel no evil thing. Well, that's why I'm saying in wholeness, what we think the commandment is.
Right.
The main is unity, oneness, and wholeness, okay?
Yeah.
And a wise man's heart discerns both time and judgment. So here we find that, you know, the manipulation that does occur in the lower frequency, you could not see that individual is not a wise person. You're only wise when you're in the realm of what? Wholeness.
That's right.
You know, and under the realm of duality, you really are foolish, and you are what? Being led by foolish people. You know.
Now, see, that's why it goes on to say that's why the misery of man is so
there
great.
You go. It's great upon him.
It's great upon him. Right.
There we go. Excellent. Excellent, family. Excellent.
One more thing. This is why the scripture says that what is necessary is that we circumcise the heart, right?
Right.
That we got to circumcise the heart. And that goes back, family, to what we read out of Love is a Fire, how some aspects, we're all unique, right?
Right.
But some aspects are going to have to be what? Cut off, circumcised, and what? Discarded. Discarded. Put in the trash.
Excellent.
Eitai, what scripture is that?
About the circumcised?
I'll give it to you later. I'll give that to you later.
But Corey, we have been in the community familiar with the circumcision of the foreskin,
Right.
you know,
Right.
the reproductive organ, you know, and they went on to do that all throughout Africa, and they talk about how painful it was, you know, for women, you know, cruelty of it. That's where we were at in the lower frequency.
That's
But
correct.
the circumcision had to do with the heart.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's preconceived then.
That's correct. That's correct. That was in the dissension now.
I knew it. I knew it.
It only deals with the physical. It only deals with the physical.
Yes.
All of
All
that.
right.
And here again, this is a perfect example. What we learned even about circumcision, right?
Right.
That was in fact low frequency because it only dealt with the physical.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
The real circumcision is in the heart. So we got to cast that learning, that program out.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it. I felt it.
Go ahead.
I think they were getting waters mixed up. The lower waters and higher waters.
Family, I need to make a correction. I gave you Joe Dispenza, page 69, and I think I said spontaneous evolution, but that is incorrect. It's not spontaneous evolution, it's evolve your brain.
Okay.
by Joe.
Okay.
Okay.
It's evolve your brain.
Yeah, because that's Bruce Lipton's spontaneous evolution.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Right. So I just want to make that correction.
So say it again, Nasik. It's evolve your brain
By Joe Dispenza.
And page 69.
Right.
Yeah, that's important. We're gonna have to return to that particular portion, Nasik, as we go forward.
Can. All right, we all right, family?
Absolutely. I see.
We're good. We're good.
Since both specific levels of consciousness animate the brain, we must possess two different arrangements, at work in the brain. We have conscious mind. We're going to say conscious awareness.
Got it, Nasik, got it. Go ahead.
Yes.
Conscious awareness and subconscious embroidered in two diverse brain systems.
Yes.
And, as opposed to subconscious mind, because we got to get rid of that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can you say that again? Say about the awareness, get rid of subconscious mind.
Instead of saying we have conscious mind, we got to say conscious awareness and subconscious awareness. You see, one of the things about this subconscious awareness or subconscious mind, this was just an inversion. You are what? Aware within the sub, it's not active on a regular basis. In other words, once you hear things in its subconscious, you want to use that word, in its sub or below its conscious, it resonates within the body, and then you can relate to it. That would be what you would call like memory. You follow what I'm saying? Locked within the body or the organs, you understand, that, resonating when the sound, is made. Other than that, if it's not that way, how would you ever know? How would you remember anything? How would you remember?
Yeah.
So we are talking about subconscious awareness as opposed to, subconscious mind, and says embroidered in two diverse brain systems. Okay, continuing on. So now that we have a greater understanding of the role of the brain's relationship to the overall function of the physical flesh, as opposed to what everyone calls the mind. Let us look at the modern simulated false mind matrix of reality. In this modern contemporary time that humanity exists in is a state of profound dualism. Okay? The term dualism is not clearly understood beyond the definition that most people know as dual or two. This concept have a much greater depth to it when one gains the understanding that dualism creates polarity or the perception that things are separated and divided as the ultimate of divinity.
Mm-hmm.
This process of dualism becomes quite hard for one to understand when they are trying to use the mind in processing wholeness as the only reality in the universe and that for humanity. Be using the mind, it's almost impossible for you to understand the effects of dualism. So we're really trying to, eradicate this concept that has been so profoundly, dual and creating all the, physical ailments and abilities that, we are lacking because of this duality. Continuing on. The dualism is the mind which prevents access to consciousness because it is directly connected to the inner organ, such as the brain and the heart. Now, see, consciousness takes us directly to what? The brain and the heart. But the mind, is up in the head, as Eitai just gave it to us.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
You need to repeat that, Nasik. I'm writing it. Dualism is the mind.
Dualism is the mind, which prevents access to consciousness because consciousness is directly connected to the inner organ, such as the brain and the heart. This is going to be very, very instrumental at this point here as we go forth about the heart, and how in Jeremiah talks about the heart, being desperately wicked and who can know it.
Right.
So all this gonna make sense when we get there. So that's why I said we got to drive this point home with this mind because, they translate the heart and mind as being the same thing and it becomes confusing there.
It's
all right.
Nasik.
Huh?
That last sentence you said such as the brain and the heart. Now, it takes me back to the question, because they're including the brain and the heart. What I thought we were talking about is the heart is where the heart of all this is coming from, not so much the physical brain.
No. What we're saying is that let's go back to the word desire. We go back to the word central. We go back to the word love. We go back to the word center. Okay, and consciousness becomes the center, of everything, and within everything, it has an effect upon all organs. So what we're saying, the organs are connected in any kind of way. Okay, the heart and the brain work very, very, close together. But what you understand is that when the mind comes into play, it what manipulates And this is what Eitai is telling us about how the ear in the physical realm, becomes the what? Most significant organ. Within the what? Non-material realm, the heart becomes, you know. And so we see that everything is connected, but we got to understand there's something that's been manipulating and is manipulating, you understand, in both of these realms. And that is this programming called the mind, because he just said that it goes what? The mind or the lower frequencies go into what? The heart and the organs too. It goes to the brain too.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we just keep listening, keep asking questions, and we're gonna get to the core of all of this here. We're gonna get there.
That was that AI Malkiel was talking about as far as
Okay.
mind, quote unquote, the mind you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when the concept of Genesis arises, we generally think of it as the beginning of life. You hear that point there now. When we hear Genesis, we hear the beginning of life.
Right.
But Genesis is not the beginning of life, founder.
Of course not.
We must rethink this as our starting point of life. More accurately, it should be said that it is the process of life in devolution or decline, moving away from true life, consciousness at rest.
Decent.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So we see consciousness at rest is life.
Yes.
But now, you know, what we determine life is when, quote unquote, in Genesis, when it says in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. This is what we always think life began at.
Right.
But this was the evolution process. Right, Eitai?
Absolutely.
All right. Remember, life is consciousness or divinity, wholeness at rest, before moving toward physicality and the loss of one's true divine nature. Okay, now here we go. With consciousness at rest, the life animating conscious energy of melanin desired to express itself, that it might observe itself, was moved by the spirit. Now listen to this point. The spirit, which is immaterial consciousness. So when you hear the word ruach, we can be comfortable with ruach because we now know ruach is what? Immaterial consciousness.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
It ain't just some wind blowing.
Right.
It's immaterial consciousness.
Nasik.
Yes, sir.
Also, the breath of life in the Genesis is the same
It's
thing.
immaterial consciousness.
Right.
Yes.
All right. All right. As the immaterial consciousness animated itself through sound, then light, waves, and into particles, which are the four unified elements, and the fifth becomes the observer as physical matter or flesh. Let me say it again, okay?
Come on, Nasik.
Immaterial consciousness animates itself through sound, then light, waves, and into particles, which are the four unified elements, and the fifth becoming the observer as physical matter / flesh. Okay? So now we are beginning to understand how all these elements is unified, and what Abba Ben-Ami shared with us. He said, when these elements, you understand, these four elements are unified, you know, and we took and said ether was the fifth one, and it brings everything into immortality. New flesh, new tissues, new this and new that. All this is where we are now beginning to gain a greater understanding of. Are we okay, family?
Nasik, repeat that
Yeah.
one more time, what you just said, what you just said.
No problem. As the immaterial consciousness animates itself through sound, then light, waves, and interparticles, which are the four unified elements. And the fifth becomes the observer, the physical matter or flesh. Within the simulated matrix or the physical plane of reality, we call this the creative process. Within the biblical allegorical narrative, this creative process is referred to as the beginning of life, although from a scientific perspective, it is referred to as sonoluminous, as consciousness animated itself, creating sound that bursts into light. This concept is allegorically conceptualized within the first 7 verses of Genesis chapter 1. And I'll go over that again. Within the biblical allegorical narrative, this creative process is referred to as the creative process is referred to as the beginning of life. Although from a scientific perspective, it is referred to as sonoluminescence, as consciousness animates itself, creating sound that bursts into light. This concept is allegorically conceptualized within the first 7 verses of Genesis. Any questions? Any comments, family?
Good, Nasik.
Eitai, we're doing all right?
We're doing excellent, Nasik.
Good.
Are you architect?
Yes,
So that was the process you were talking about, sound in the process of converting to light
absolutely.
from luminescent.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's continue then. As we continue our focus on the attention of Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, and Moses the phrase, without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit moved upon the face of the waters. In Hebrew, the term is tohu, vebohu. As we closely peruse the second verse in respect to the narrative, we find 6 elements relating to the creative process. The first is earth, darkness, face, deep, spirit, move, and the 6th as feminine. Now, all 6 of those terms, family, is all feminine.
Yes.
Let me go over that again. Let me go over that again now, because it says here, as we continue our focus on the attention of Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, and Moses the phrase, without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit moved upon the face of the waters. In the Hebrew, the term is tohu vebohu. As we close to peruse this second verse in respect to the narrative, we find 6 elements relating to this creative process. The first is earth, darkness, face, that's 3, deep is 4, spirit is 5, and move is 6. And of those 6, they're all feminine, family. Now,
Question.
what does that tell us? What does that tell
Question. I
us
see. Yes.
about their life force and their life
That's
sustaining?
correct.
Yes. Yes.
All six of those elements that we're talking about in the creative process are feminine elements.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that all of us that came through this physical, process, all of us got a belly button, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Which means that we was all connected to our mother,
That's
right?
right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I want us to if you're taking notes, make a note right here because this is going to be very critical as we get toward the end of this when we start to talk about who you are and what takes place in your mother's womb.
Right.
It's
Question.
going to be very critical. And it's going to
But
cause, the sisterhood, I think Yakini, she's is one I know online still bearing, she can bear, children. So that she will look at this a whole nother way than how we have looked at it. And then we'll be able to see all the things that we are going through, how all this was a part of the devolution into what? Imperfection,
That's
the
right.
flaw, and all the flaws that we possess today.
That's right.
Yes.
Nasik.
Yes,
Nasik.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, a question. Those six terms that you use that were feminine. I just wanted to know, how are they feminine? I'm trying to recall the words that you use, trying to relate to the feminine aspect.
Okay, in the Hebrew language,
In the sense of the Hebrew word, family.
right? That's right. The
In,
Hebrew word,
Right,
in the sense of the
right.
Hebrew word, they're expressed in the Hebrew sense as being all feminine.
right? Now, Bokori, now you know the language, the Hebrew language is what built up off of the foundation is what on the basis of masculinity. It's not based upon. But if you look throughout you got more feminine words in Hebrew than you got masculine. But this was all part of the trick. You understand that when Ben Yehuda and them put this together, again, under the, guidance of their ancestors, all this had to be a part of the process that would keep us in this, lower frequency until we hit rock bottom. Other than that, we got out of it.
That's right.
We got out
So
of it.
so it's not according to
Oh,
the
no, ain't
Hebrew
no
grammar as far as the hey at the end, or these different letters that are feminine letters.
right.
So you're saying it has nothing to do with that. It has something to do with the word. It's not the word, but the six words that you refer to itself.
They express feminine quality. Okay.
I guess I'm trying to see what are the feminine qualities. I don't see them. I don't have the words in front of me. If I did,
Name.
kind of look into it more.
I had to walk away.
Let's look at, everything has a designation, right? And if it has a designation, it's either one or the other. It's like male or female, created he, them. You remember when you start to understand how all this was put together, it was put together upon a principle of two. That's why we keep talking about polarity, duality. All this was a part of the simulated false matrix. And in that, creative process, you got what? Male and female. And that's what I say, created he, them. So you got words expressing the quote unquote nature of the feminine and words quoting the nature of the masculine. And these what? They are at odds with one another. They are in opposition to one another. And we see it, man and woman talking about they love one another, but they really, are in opposition to one another. I mean, when you meditate on it, a little bit more, you'll begin to see the profundity of all of this.
I mean, I just got to go back and just get the 6 words you're talking about, and then I can deal with it myself.
Okay. All right,
think-
family. We've been on quite a while. We're gonna halt this part, the recording part, Eitai. We can put this on hold and say wholeness.
Got
And
it.